Hi there. Welcome to Two Dirty Hippies podcast. I'm your host, Melanie. I am doing a solo podcast today because Trevor is out of town for work. He gave me the green light to go ahead and record this episode without him. So that kind of sucks, but it'll be okay. Today we're going to be talking about, I guess I'm telling the story, rather, of the time that we took our converted school bus and moved down to Tucson, Arizona, and kind of some stuff that we've never shared on social media before. So if you're feeling a little nosy, let's go ahead and jump on in. We moved down to the Southwest in September 2019. We needed to go somewhere warm because we were ready to go ahead and embark on living in the school bus that we had converted full time. And where we're from, it does freeze, and there's no way we could live in the Skoolie in freezing temperatures because our external storage was where we had kept our water tank for all of our fresh water, and that definitely would have froze in one freezing day. So we decided to move to the Southwest, and I had my heart set on Tucson because I had heard a lot of really awesome things about that town, but I had never been before. But I had gone to Phoenix a number of times, and I liked the proximity to Phoenix, and I was able to transfer down there because I worked at the airport. So they had the same company that I worked for at the Tucson airport, which actually worked out and was an interesting experience because it gets hot down there. But so we moved down there, and I had gotten everything set up with a RV resort. It's a snowbird city, so there's a ton of RV resorts to choose from. But one thing I didn't realize was a lot of them will not allow modified vehicles because, I don't know, they're really picky about it. And they only allow RV models 2005 and newer, which that was kind of a bummer because we didn't realize that until we were already down there, and they shoot us away. They're like, no modified vehicles, you cannot park here. So we were like, okay, cool. So after 6 days of driving down here, camping every night, we have to last minute try to figure out where we're going to park the bus now that we're here, because I was about to start my job at the airport down there. So we ended up finding the Pima County Fairgrounds, which it was kind of affordable. I think it was $150 for an entire week, but there was a catch. They didn't allow you to be there during events, and we had just gotten there during the busy peak season because Arizona does more events in their winter season because it's not so hot. And since they don't allow you when there's events going on to be there, we had to find a new place, but then we could come back, they said. And that'd be way too stressful to deal with, especially since I was going to be working. But that was actually really close to the airport now that I look back, so that was kind of convenient for my first week. And it was also really cool. The Pima County Fairgrounds, they have a lot of beautiful grounds that you can walk on, and we had our dogs with us, so we were able to experience the night sky in Tucson. And I love the Arizona sunsets. They're so beautiful. And we were able to walk the dogs, and they also had a dog park where they had all the RVs and stuff. So that was kind of nice. And they had shower houses, which is an added bonus. We had a shower, but if we were ever running low on water and we didn't feel like filling it up, we could have, went to their shower house. But so that wasn't going to work out for us because we needed something with a little bit more stability. So we went to Craigslist, which probably a little bit crazy looking back because there's a lot of crazies out in the world. And, but I feel like we're pretty intuitive. And if somebody's got a weird vibe, like we'll probably like figure that out almost immediately. So we came in contact with a few different options, and it wasn't the right fit, or like they wouldn't allow like our dogs or something. And then we found one, and it seemed almost too good to be true because the price was like, it was like $200 for an entire month or something like that. We're like, wait, what? And they were like looking for modified vehicles or tiny homes, or like people that were interested in, sustainable living and had solar and were like a little bit more off grid. So we were like, oh heck yeah, this sounds like almost too good to be true. So we came in contact with, I'll call them Denise and Benny, because I'm pretty sure it was Benny who had posted it on Craigslist. That's not their real names, by the way. I'm not going to disclose their names because I don't know if they would be okay with that, but whatever. So we came in contact, and we like sent photos back and forth because they just want to make sure that we weren't creepers or crazies either. So we like sent photos of our dogs and then of us, and they were like, okay, yeah, like we'd be interested in having a meeting with you guys, and we can kind of like fill each other out and see if it would be a right fit. So we set out, and it was a little bit of a journey getting there. I think it was like an hour away from where we were at, and we were on the eastern side of Tucson, and we had to go like way clear on the other side past the city. And we like turn on this dirt road, and it's so bumpy, and like it's just straight desert all around us, puny little mesquite trees, and different like water flow. I forget what it's like, such a common name, but you could just see like where like all the water would come in during like the floods of the monsoons and stuff. And we go down this like dirt road for a while, and I'm just looking at Trevor like, whoa, okay, I wonder if the bus will even be able to make it. And we see a sign, and we're like, wait a second, where are we? And we just see like it's the sign for the community. And I guess that's the tea I'm about to spill, is Trevor and I lived in a community for the entire year that we lived in Tucson. And I'm going to be sharing all about it. So we meet up with Denise and Benny. Well, oh yeah, Benny wasn't there actually. He was working. It was Denise, and I'm going to call the other guy Timon. And so we meet up with them, and they kind of show us like the land and like all these different things. We're like, okay, cool. Like this was where we would be like parked at. And then we go further in, and we see this like big dome with shade cloth, aluminum shade cloth all around it. And it's like one of those big like dome jungle gym things that you would climb all over when you were in like recess in school and stuff. And we're like, what is this? And they're like, this is the yoga dome. And we're like, a yoga dome? What? And then there was a teepee, and that was like the meditation teepee. And there's the bhakti, and that was where like there was like a community kitchen for anybody that like needed more space with like a refrigerator, or if they were out of propane or something, they could go use the community kitchen. We're like, what in the heck? Where in the world are we? So we met with them, and they're just kind of filling us out, and they're like, do you guys like actually have jobs, or are you guys like just like a bunch of bums? And we're like, we're not bums. It was super interesting. But anyways, we drove around there and kind of explored a little bit, and we see like all these people, and they're like they have RVs, and there's tiny homes, and there's rammed earth buildings, and we're just like, this is seriously so cool. Like I don't know how we stumbled across this, but like we're super interested in like learning more about this place and like the people that live here. And like, I mean, we had not seen people living like that alternative lifestyle up until that point. The only time we would see it would be like on the internet or on a TV show or something like that. And we got back in the car and we started like leaving and going back into town. And I just looked at Trevor and I was like, we have to at least just like give it a shot, because what an experience, right? He was like on board too. I wish he was here to be able to like talk to me, because I think it'd be funny to hear his perspective on it. But I was really kind of inspired because I don't know, they were all like living the way that I kind of wanted to try and live, you know, with like more sustainable and you know, just a lighter footprint, carbon footprint is what I'm trying to say, like a less wasteful life. So we went for it. We're like, worst case scenario, if this ends up being like weird or if we get bad vibes, we can just like drive our bus away. That's the beauty of, you know, building a tiny house on a motor vehicle or like having that type of situation. It's so easy to get away if you ever needed to. But one thing that Denise made very clear was like, you do not need to be a part of the community. Like, don't feel like you have to like go to the events or anything like that. Like, you totally can, but you don't have to. Like, I know that you're here to just like rent a spot on my land. And we were like, cool, sounds good. But so we packed up everything at the bus and we ended up moving there. And I think it was like the first week of October. That would make sense, because we left in September for Tucson. So yeah, and we paid for our first month of rent, and we went to our spot that we were only at for a night, and we needed a little bit more power because we were doing dual grid. And I mean, like, we are getting like our solar and everything hooked up and seeing how much we needed to like charge our batteries to, and just like navigating that whole situation, because really that was like our first time, like, you know, living in the bus full time. And so we actually then had to move to a different spot, and which was only $50 more a month. Seriously insane. It was awesome. And so we got everything set up, and I don't know, the first little bit of time looking back was really awesome, because like we ended up going to a bonfire one night and got to meet some people. And it's just nice, like, when you're like moving away from your friends and family, to like kind of come into an area where like everybody's like kind of friendly with each other, and they're really like open and accepting of, you know, all walks of life. And so it was kind of fun to like meet everybody and kind of experience that first like little bonfire thing. One of my favorite memories, like looking back at that time, was just the weather, because it was still quite hot in October, but as soon as the sun would go down, it would just like cool down to like a beautiful like 60 degrees. Tucson is an observatory city, which basically means there's not a lot of city lights, and because you need to be able to like see all the stars in the sky. And when I say like you can see stars for like miles, and it is so cool. You can see constellations like perfectly. You can see the satellites moving, and you can see like shooting stars. It's so incredible. Like, just looking up at the night sky in Tucson, I feel like every single person needs to experience what that's like. And then I had mentioned it a little bit before, but one of my favorite things about Arizona in particular is the sunset, because in case anybody doesn't know, when you see like a lot of color up in the sky when the sun's setting, like all the reds and magentas and like those really spectacular colors, it actually means that there's a lot of carbon in the air. And so it's kind of actually like not that great of a thing, but it is beautiful to the eye. I mean, if you think about it, sun sets in the west, and west of Tucson is like San Diego, Los Angeles and Las Vegas and stuff. So there's a lot of carbon in the air. And so that just makes the sunsets in Arizona absolutely spectacular. And they're like multicolored, and it's just so special. So those are like some of my favorite memories looking back. I also loved that I could wear my sundresses during the day when the sun was out, and then I'd like cozy up in my sweaters and yoga pants at night, because it was like the perfect balance of like summer during the day, fall, winter at night. I would like to go more in depth about kind of the more community aspects of everything, since that's kind of like the big reveal of this podcast, is the fact that we did that. And what was interesting about that was there was like, it was one huge community, but then it had like different people owned like several acres of land, and they like created their own like little spot or like separate little community amongst the larger community. And so there was one like that, and they had like the junkyard, they called it the boneyard, and they all had like a huge recycling center, and they had like different bins, like paper here, cardboard here, aluminum there, glass there. So it was like very organized system, which was really cool, because that kind of taught me more about recycling. Because I mean, up until that point, I didn't really like put too much thought into recycling. I just kind of like threw it in the recycling bin, and then, you know, put on the curb, and then they take it away magically. And so we would have to like sort all that stuff out and break it down, clean everything out really good. So that was really cool. And then there was another one, and they had the whole like composting system, and like they called it humanure. So that's actually where I never did it. I'm not going to take credit, because that was all Trevor. So Trevor, while you're listening to this, I just want to let you know, I really appreciate you being the one that handled our poop. Like, just being frank. And he would go and like clean out our composting toilet, and then go take it to the humanure and all that stuff, which was like far away from where we were. And then on Denise's land, she was kind of starting to get things going. She had just like purchased the land, and she had a business up and running, so she wasn't there like a ton. So me and Trevor kind of like, we were living there for so cheap that, and Trevor hadn't had a job yet, so he helped kind of get rid of some of the undesirable cactus down in the Sonoran. Is like a cholla. Sometimes they will eject their little spike balls, and it's really painful, and it's actually really hard to get like the little spike balls to like get off of you, because they like move. It's horrible, actually. They're so sharp. It's like the sharpest cactus, I swear. And so he kind of helped knock down some of the wild cholla that was on her land, because she didn't really want that there. And you know, it's not the best when you're like trying to plant other things around it, because I mean, those little spike balls, they just get everywhere. It's a very like littering plant. And then like those little spike balls, like anybody that has handled cactus before should know how easy they are to like root. Like you can like cut a cactus, let it dry out and callus over, put a little bit of soil and water, and it'll like start growing roots off of where you cut it. And that's how those little spike balls are. So then, I mean, if you let it go, like you'd get like from one cholla cactus, you could get like 50 baby cholla cactus. So it's a very like vigorous grower down there. And so we went ahead and Trevor like knocked all that down. And I actually have a really funny story about that. So I don't know why he did this, but he had, what is that called? I always have like huge brain fart moments. He was like hatching the big cholla. It was as tall as he was, the main stem of it. And for some reason, he was not wearing protective like gear. It was super hot, so I understand that. But he kicked it and the entire branch fell on his lower leg. Like he had little cactus spike balls like all over his self, like, and they had embedded in his skin. Oh my gosh, I helped him like with tweezers trying to get every little spine out of it. Was like all over his knee and down to his ankle, like completely covered in spikes. So that was interesting. And anyway, so we kind of helped with like cleaning up the land, getting rid of any like dead debris, any trash that had like blown over to it, because people are just so wasteful. They just throw their trash out the window and somehow it would end up on Denise's land. I don't know how, but it collected stuff. Tucson's super windy, so I mean, you throw something from a mile away and it'll end up, you know, in a ditch or like a groove of the land, and it'll be there for who knows how long. So we kind of helped with that. He also helped build a veggie compost area, which that was super cool. I had never composted up to that point with like veggie scraps and stuff. And we bought some worms to kind of help get it going, because we were trying to be as mindful as possible when it came to our waste. That was a huge learning curve, because I felt like everybody down there was already like so advanced with, you know, not accumulating a lot of trash whenever they went to the grocery store or whatever. So we had to do like a lot of unlearning from the way we grew up and kind of try to find like the things at the store that you could either recycle or compost. And like, if I guess I just didn't want to produce a bunch of trash, because I was already kind of embarrassed, honestly, with how much trash we were already producing, like compared to everybody else. Like I don't know, I just felt like we were like super wasteful, and I didn't like that, even though we were like better than we had ever been up until that point. So we tried to find stuff that we could then turn into soil, because I mean, if you can regenerate something, why not try to, you know? So he had that, and composting is just so cool. And like we don't give enough credit where it's due. Worms do so good for like soil and growing veggies and stuff. How fast they can break down like a pile of like veggie and cuttings and yard waste and stuff it's absolutely insane. They're like little magicians, and then they reproduce so fast too, but they like all stay in the little compost pile, so you never even really realize they're there, except for when you're like shoveling and shaking up the compost to kind of help get things going, or like if they've gotten like one area really broken down but another area needs more of their focus, you kind of help kind of move that around so they can get to the new stuff that you're adding on top and stuff. Anyways, so we did that. Well, another thing that was really cool that we had never done before was, so Denise had gotten a shed and she purchased a washing machine. And so we were doing the washing machine. We were using like Dr. Bronner soap and 7th generation like compostable liquid detergent and stuff. And then we air dried and hung up on all of our clothes on the line. And that was interesting. I definitely think clothes dry so much faster when they're being hung up outside. I don't understand like why humans ever kind of went away from that drying method, because stuff dries like just insanely fast. And maybe it was because it was so dry in Arizona, but you put it out on the line and then like 10 minutes you could go get it. It felt like it was like already dry by that time. That was cool. Another thing that's really awesome about Arizona is it actually has 2 growing seasons. So we were able to get our hands dirty in some soil. I'm not the best gardener, if I'm being honest. I can kind of get a little bit lazy about fertilizing and watering. And if you skip a day and you have like little starts of lettuce and kale and stuff, you need to water it every day. Otherwise, they're going to die with the Arizona sun. But yeah, it was all really interesting. We also got kind of introduced into some different ancient philosophies and a bunch of different religions. We kind of got interested in like learning more about like Buddhism and Hinduism and different like philosophies like the Tao and Bhagavad Gita. Did I say that right? I don't know. But we like learned more about that stuff. We also Trevor started reading more about like the Bible and like reading the stories of the Bible. That was really cool. I don't know, there's something about that land that just kind of, I don't know, it's almost like you are more in tune with your higher self. It feels like really spiritual and very like sacred. So we kind of had spiritual awakenings there. We also kind of got more into meditation and yoga and moving our body and, you know, just the importance of getting the mind healthy. Really, if the mind's not healthy, then you're really kind of dooming yourself in a way. You need to have like that time with yourself every day. Usually at the start is probably best, where you can just kind of decompress and like not think about things. It was also like our first time living out in the country. We grew up in the city, so used to hearing like people driving by and cars honking, and living in an apartment before that, you can hear like your neighbor. And I don't know, it was kind of cool being able to only hear like the sounds of the scenery outside, like the coyotes howling at night. You can hear like the desert toads like making their like I can't do it. I just tried to make a frog noise. A toad noise, actually, Melanie. But you can just hear all of those things that you can't really hear in the city, and that was really special. Looking back, I do have a regret that I just want to mention, and I wish that I would have put myself out there even more and got to know people on an even deeper level. I was kind of dealing with, how can I say this? I was definitely dealing with depression, I think, looking back, and I have like lots of social anxiety. So I don't really put myself out there a lot. Something really like traumatic happened to me right before we had started the bus conversion. And I think I was kind of still dealing with some of those emotions and negative feelings and negative thoughts. But I don't think I would have gotten past it and be where I am today if we wouldn't have gone down to Arizona and kind of went away from, you know, all our friends and family that we were like close to and stuff. Yeah, so it kind of felt isolating at times because I do have social anxiety, but I really wish I would have gotten to know some of the people there even more, because there was a lot of artists, and like I felt like they were like almost like spiritual teachers in a way, or they were like just really attuned with the body. I had we had one person that we both had gotten pretty close to, that we honestly, probably looking back, we were like the closest with her. And she was into like acupuncture, and like she did tuning forks, and that was really interesting because, I mean, most people that are listening to this probably don't even know what tuning forks are, because I didn't. But it's basically like almost on the same sort of spectrum as like Reiki and like other energy work and stuff. So like, I don't know, it's just cool like being able to like be around people that did that and had so much knowledge behind it, because you can like ask questions and, I don't know, kind of, if you're open enough, like explore that type of thing. And I really think that that's one thing Western medicine is lacking in, is using the body to move energy, and how important it actually is if you have like stagnant energy in like a certain part of your body, how detrimental that can be to your overall well-being. But anyways, kind of veering off topic there. But there's just like so many people that did things like that. And I think there was even like a girl, and she was like relatively big on Instagram, and that it would have been cool if I would have like got to know her a little bit more and kind of like asked her some questions about like how she had gotten to where she was on her like social media presence and stuff like that. But yeah, and then even Denise herself, like she had goals in mind, and she was like trying to find her dharma, and I really think that she has found it. Like she's exactly where she wanted to be like a year ago from now. And I just think that was really inspiring. And she had built a microgreen business, which I had never had microgreens up until living in Tucson. And they were Denise's microgreens that she had grown. And like, I didn't realize the health benefits and stuff to those little tiny, like little sprouts. And she built that business, and she was able to sell it. And then, you know, now she's exactly where she wanted to be. I mean, it's not my story to tell, but I don't know. It's very inspiring to be around people that like were go-getters and like entrepreneurs. And I don't know, they had a lot of knowledge that could have been to share. And I wish I would have asked more questions. But we did get to kind of learn like more in depth about growing sprouts and working with different soil amendments, and learning about solar power and composting, and just so many cool things that humans are kind of veering away from. And I wish that we would be veering more towards it, because when you're working like so in peace and, you know, being beneficial to the land that we walk on and we live on, I don't know, it just kind of changes your perspective on life. And looking back, that's kind of one of the biggest lessons I learned, was like just to be hyper present and to be truly grateful for the ground you walk on, because without it, you'd have nothing, you know, like who knows what is going to happen in the next 20 years. The reason why we decided to move away from Arizona is it was so hot. There was not enough monsoons during the year of 2020. So water was kind of scary, you know, it was so sparse, and like they're like taking from aquifers that take from like the Colorado River. So, I mean, at the end of the day, as like conscious as we were trying to be with our carbon footprint, like the water we were drinking and using to water the garden and using to like wash our clothes and all that stuff, like as much as we like would use it and like use the gray water to water things, you're still like taking from a precious resource that really doesn't have a lot of water left in it. And, you know, that's not sustainable. Like if there's no rainfall, then you can't live there. Without water, there's no life. So I don't know. That's why we decided to move back to where we're from. And then also we decided that we were ready to start a family during that time. Let me try to think if there was any more that I could talk about with like being in the community. Trevor, he actually went to, I don't know what they call it. It was like they did like sauna Saturdays. So they had this big sauna that they had built with like the earth's clay and everything. And they would like play like a bunch of different instruments and like have flutes and stuff going, and it would echo off the walls. He said that was like a really cool experience to be a part of. I never did it because too much social anxiety for me, but I wish I would have, looking back, because the sauna is just such a healing thing itself, like that dry heat. So that was kind of cool. What else did they do? Sometimes they would host, like if people had like extra campers and stuff, they would host people through like Airbnb or people who were like traveling through. And we got to meet this one girl, and she was from Europe. She was so cool, and she was talking about like her experience, and she had just came from like the Amazon and traveled through Mexico to Tucson. And she was just talking about like being in the Amazon rainforest at night, all the different noises, and I don't know, she had some really interesting and cool stories to tell. We had a few more of those like bonfire nights, and just like, I don't know, it was really special, like I said, with like it being an observatory city. Being around a campfire and looking up at the Tucson night sky is literally like next level amazing. And I really hope that every single person that listens to this can experience that. It makes you feel like so insignificant in the grand scheme of things. Like we're just these tiny little specks on a tiny little planet in this vast universe. And when you can see the stars like that in the sky, it's insane. Like it's technicolor, like truly. Being there, you can like see that each star almost has like a different color like around it. And I don't know, I'm like geeking out over the stars. But if you got to see what I've seen, you would feel the same way. But yeah, I guess I'm gonna go ahead and wrap this up. Thanks for hanging out with me and letting me tell some of the stories of, you know, my perspective living in a community in the middle of the Sonoran. I hope that you have a great rest of your day or night, and I wish you all the love and happiness that your heart desires. And we'll see you in the next one. Hopefully Trevor will be a part of it.